Hello and welcome to John and James Live. My name's John Hastings and this is my co-host,
James CeeLo.
Mr. James CeeLo. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, mate. I'm very well.
Good.
We're both in sort of pastel-y blues today, I think. Is that a bluish or is that grey shirt you're wearing
Yeah,
there?
this is blue, James. Baby blue. It's what
Wonderful.
we do in the summertime. The summertime when the living is easy. Come on, James. Join in.
I wasn't going to join in then. Maybe I'll just break into song just during the course of the conversation.
Just
randomly.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. But today, James, we're going to be talking about, we're on a live. We're going to be talking about lives. Lives on a lives.
You didn't tell me we were live.
Can you believe it? We are live. It's shocking. So we're going to, I've got some stats for you, James. You know, I'm the stats man.
I'm so glad you've got stats. I was missing a stat, actually, I have to say.
So, how many people do you think are creators on LinkedIn? What percentage of people?
It's going to be.
You already know. We've already had this conversation, haven't you?
I know. I was going to make out that we hadn't had this conversation, but I blew it.
We're terrible at acting. So 1% of people are creators on LinkedIn, and I was quite surprised at that. It's crazy,
low, isn't it?
Only 9% of people engage, so they maybe like some stuff, maybe do the odd post here and there, maybe comment. But that means 90% of people are just lurking, or just going in and out, just not really engaging that much. That's a wide open market, isn't it? It's great. If you've got
surprised. I have to say, I was surprised, mate, to be honest.
It's the same as in all platforms, I think. If you look on YouTube as well, it's very few people that are actually creating. I said this to my daughter about being I was basically talking to myself whilst talking to my daughter, saying, be the creator, not the consumer. Whatever you do, if you're learning something, share it.
Yeah. You know, did she do that eye roll thing and went, oh God, Dad?
Yeah, she just didn't listen to me at all, really. She just went back to consuming.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Consuming's easy, isn't it? It's a little bit of a mind numb, a bit of a sedation. Sometimes I'm a master consumer. I actually love information. I love knowledge. I'm curious. I want to learn. So it's not always bad to be a consumer, but you've got to get the balance right, James. I think if you're overdoing something, then maybe you think to yourself, okay, a good way of learning is sharing. Being on camera is, you know, part of the game in modern business now. Personal branding's coming to the forefront, isn't it? And faceless corporations are going to be under more pressure, I would say, when there's a lower barrier of entry for people to get involved with business. Do you think, James?
Well, just interestingly today, popped up on my LinkedIn feed, as it does, a video from Apple about their new AirPods, their AirPod 4s.
Yeah. And
they got Pascal, I can't remember his surname, but they've done a long form advert. So I didn't watch all of it, but it was about, let's say, 5 minutes long, which is unheard of for an advert. So
yeah, different.
Beautifully made, very engaging, a storyline to it, and again, kind of breaking the mold. It's like, well, what we think we know, we don't know, or what we've gotten used to. It's these disruptors that are now coming in that have to get our attention in some way.
Yeah.
And the old adage of it's like you've got to have the message within 30 seconds or less. Otherwise, you just switch off, you're on to the next thing. But actually, it's the quality of what you're producing is key. I think if it looks like everything else, and yes, you're going to just scroll past it and it's going to blend in to the background and be particularly generic. But I think what they've done is they've deconstructed the advert. They've made it like a little short documentary almost, and made it visually stunning. So, you know, this is the thing. And
I trendsetters with this stuff.
Well, videos, it gives you an insight into people's kind of soul almost, doesn't it? That you can't really hide that. If you're just putting out a post or it's a photograph or whatever, that can be curated in any way, shape, or form. But I think video is you're getting to see the individual in real time and in real life, and how they react, how they respond, their facial expressions, the comments that they make, their views. And I think with the live it's raw. There's no do-overs. You can't go back and say, oh, we'll edit that bit out and retake it. You're literally there doing it. So
yeah, and if there's people out there now want to ask questions, you can just put your questions in, say hi, give us a thumbs up, and we'll bring you up on the screen. But you're right, James. The video is like the level up of probably trust, getting to know somebody online, because we're living in the online world now, aren't we? So posts can be good to engage people. Video will be a next level up in terms of people being able to see you. But even video can be very, orchestrated, polished, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's a time and a place for everything, isn't there? Sometimes an orchestrated, polished video is just perfect, which looks great, and it's got things flying in and out. Sometimes it can look brilliant, and there's a place there for now long form content. I was listening to Daniel Priestley from Key Person of Influence, and he was just talking about the elections in America and how they really, for the first time, utilized long form content in podcasts, and how Kamala Harris they showed her time on podcasts, which was so low in compared to what Donald Trump was doing. So, he did an unfiltered 3 hours or something. There's no, you can fake it for half an hour, 45 minutes if you've got a spiel, can't you? If you've got a speech, but you can't get away with it for 3 hours.
You're going to crack.
You're going to get to know somebody on a personal level, aren't you? You're going to understand them deeply, what this person's about. You still might not agree with them. Again, 3 hours, they might be good at, hoodwinking. Who knows? I'm not giving any opinions on Trump or Harris today, but it showed you that the medium was important. People valued the medium, and that's why things like the Joe Rogan podcast are so popular, because there is no there's no pre-questions, is there? It's very off the cuff. It's very real. It's a very real conversation that's evolving. And that's what we like, James.
Well, this is it. And I think because he was a comedian previously, there's no sort of apparent agenda. That, he's not in corporate. He's not a politician. So I guess there's a kind of there isn't a preconceived idea as to about who he is. And the fact he's very entertaining, he's very forthright, he's, very blatantly him, and unapologetically so. And, I think that is the appeal, that people can then get on board with that. He speaks the language. God, it sounds like I'm talking about Trump again. But it's like, it's that sort of thing, isn't it?
We're not Trump to support.
We're not talking about
not saying he's good or bad. We're not really political supporters, are we? So it's very we're very splinters on the fence.
Comes back to Trump.
Yeah, it always comes back to Trump at the moment.
He's engineered that brilliantly, isn't he?
Yeah, but it's a marketing thing, and being able to have the know and trust factor in whatever you're doing. And it's very noisy. Even if 1% of people are creating, 1% of a billion is still a lot of people. It's still a lot of people on your feed, but you probably see the same people all the time. And with cost prices of marketing going up, I know Google pay-per-click, because I used to do it with an old business. The cost prices just keep going up and up and up. So it costs you more to reach a smaller amount of people all the time. But with organic, while it's available, if you can engage with people for free and build up some organic reach, engagement, and then utilize that to build that like, know, and trust factor to get people back into your ecosystem of services or products, or get to know you as a person, because the old adage of people buying from people and having real relationships. Because I'm an AI fan, James. You like a bit of AI, don't you? I think ChatGPT, I'm probably more of a fan than you are. I like it to build articles, to do imagery. I know some people are not against it because of the whole eco green thing with imagery, but I think to have a balance of the two, because otherwise, what's the future going to look like, James, when everything is AI generated content?
Well, I think more acceptance around it, the fact that it's just become, again, we're in one of these situations where on the sort of the upturn of this, of it still being very new. I mean, even though it's been around for
it's very new,
at least 5-10 years, isn't it? That it's now coming into its own, that it's becoming part of the conversation, that people are still trying to figure out how they feel about it. And it's all very unnerving and anxiety inducing. But once, I'd give it a couple of years and there's just going to be an acceptance around it. But these things evolve. I mean, they have to bring in ways in which they can verify what is real and what is AI generated. So there has to be some sort of filter, and it'll have to be some sort of body that's introduced that will enable people to put it through a filter and find out whether this has actually been AI generated or whether this is news footage that actually happened.
Like so video footage, you mean?
Video footage for sure, or even a picture. Anything that's being put up publicly.
Yeah.
In a way in which they can actually verify that it's put through some, government organization or some verified organization that can actually say that this is correct. Like a sort of a Reuters organization or some news. But even that can be infiltrated, but a way in which there can be a verification of its, that it's genuine.
That's what you would need, wouldn't you, on that? Because otherwise, you could technically, with AI imagery, you could probably clone somebody, pre-record it, and then put it through a live. Because even with these lives, you can press the pre-record button, record it beforehand, and then put it out as a live, which is a bit. It's not live, is it? Then it's pre-recorded live, which is a pre-recorded video. So and they'll get to a point where you and I could be both avatars sat here, and any language that we wanted to be speaking in, we could be speaking it. It'd be yours and my face. Everything would be the same. It just would be a digital representation of us, and our mouths would move in time with the the language that was being spoken, and that's already. And it'll be so good, won't it, that you won't be able to tell, James. You won't be able to tell. But is there anything wrong with that, James, to do that? Is it a means to an end? Is that a means to an end for businesses? I think if you want to create AI content for articles and things like that, and they hit the spot and the messaging gets across and it does what you would have done anyway, but 100 times as quick and maybe written in a better way, as long as you agree with the content and it follows your values, then I'm somebody who says,
my perspective on it is perfect for things like training videos or things like that you don't necessarily need to have a human being doing it, but there's still that sort of way in which you can interact with it, listen, get the expressions on the face, the hand gestures, all that kind of thing, that you don't really need to have a human being doing that. But I mean, going back to fitness, that you can get now fitness apps that incorporate, and it's in any location in the world. so they could be stood in the middle of Sydney Harbour on a little platform doing a workout, and that never happened. That never existed. But it looks, for all intents and purposes, so it's engaging for the viewer. It's a great, you know, scene to be looking at. But there was zero model there or fitness instructor that was in that location at that time. So. But
is it? But can it replace
really
the
engaging.
actual human being, James? Like, I could just run over to the corner, grab my guitar, be spontaneous, play a song, ask you a random question, engage with the audience, use humor, sarcasm. Yeah, it might be able to do some of that, but will it be?
I quite like that version. Can we try that?
Yeah, I know.
I quite
it
like
sounds
that version.
quite good, doesn't it? But
it does, doesn't it?
You know, I think there's still going to be a place in the near future, in the next 20 years, for live content as a way of standing out and differentiating yourself from
and there's
other
still
people.
A level of creativity, isn't it? And again, it comes back to the sort of sentience that these programs could be creating their own content, that you give them a set of parameters and just press play, and then, you know, it can generate all of the scripts, all of the content, and then you have no involvement with it whatsoever. At the moment, there's still a lot of creativity. So like what you do, for example, is you have to go in there and be intentional. And what it spits out is directly in correlation to what it is that you've input into it.
Yeah.
So it's not like you've just gone, oh, I'll cherry pick something out of the ether and, you know, just, yeah, that'll do. That sounds a bit like me. You do actually have to go in and give it very careful consideration, instruction, and then what it then spits out, you can then go in and change, iterate. So there's still massive amounts of involvement from the human being, from the creative.
On the prompting side, there is on the AI, 100%
on the prompt. But even after the prompting, there's still that, you know, looking
curation.
At it and changing it, curating it. Maybe it, you know, that doesn't make sense or needs to be changed here and here. So, you know, I refute the fact that it's laziness or that you're cheating in any way, but it's just enhancing the creative experience. It's like, you know, in photography, for example, if you didn't have the right lighting, you know, and you're not going to tell me that photographs aren't digitally enhanced when you're in fashion, blemishes are going to be taken out, all that sort of thing.
Of course, but you can alter everything, can't you, on a photograph? It's going to be,
you know, the person who's had that photograph taken of them, they don't recognize themselves because it's so far from what they were on that day. So, you know, but there's a level of acceptance and all of these things, and only time will tell in terms of how people start to interact with it.
And I get it. And most of it's coming down to a lot of fear, isn't it? There's a lot of resistance to anything. People were resistant about cars coming in because, you know, they like their horses, and it's the same with anything really. There's going to be that level of angst, that fear that they're going to be displaced, the fear that they're, you know, maybe not going to have any economic input, they can't adapt, and they don't like the concept of it. They feel like there is a creativity there. But I said to somebody the other day, I guess the painter said the same about the photographer. The photographer said the same about the videographer, and now the videographer is going to say the same about the AI generated images that are put into full-blown movies. That every one of them would have said, look, you could have stuck to the painter. He's the one who's actually creating the photograph with his hand. That skill.
Yeah. And to your point, horses still exist.
Horses do still exist, yeah.
So,
James,
you know, with all of this new tech, there's still plenty
there's still
of
room, isn't there? There's still painters. The paintings probably the most expensive things that go for sale, aren't they?
Well, NFTs again.
NFTs, but real big painters from the past are the ones that go for the hundreds of millions. So it's still that hand painted thing that is the most prized and expensive because it's rare. And when we have this influx of AI generated content, because it's got an ability to create so much of it so fast, then I think the market's just going to be completely saturated with it. And then people will go back to wanting some type of real engaging content. Maybe everything goes in these cycles, James. It's like if you're too much concrete, you want more trees and you want nature. Too much of one thing, it probably spins back and goes in the opposite direction.
I do think there are these natural cycles where you go so far in one direction and then just over a period of time, it starts to then come back. So, you know, I don't know that we're sort of disappearing off the precipice quite yet. I think there's, you know, again, when you look through history, there's periods like this that we all get very anxious and very concerned. But saying that, I do believe that with the advent of AI, that this is going to accelerate pretty quickly.
It's going to go.
That's how we keep a handle on it, because never in history have we been at this point where these things can, you know, double, triple, quadruple within days, let alone, you know, weeks, months, years.
Yeah. So why are people so scared of being on camera, James? What is that fear? What do you think? Why are people, they're scared of just doing a recording of themselves and putting it up, let alone being on a live? What is that, James?
So this is again my personal view is and how I felt. This hasn't always been this way, you know, this ability to be able to just kind of talk to the camera and relax with it. But I think it's most multifaceted of possibly the way you look or the way you feel you look, that maybe you're not happy with a certain aspect of yourself and, you know, you feel self-conscious about it. But
I never thought about that. That's a good point, the way you look, isn't it? I never really... Well, that probably is quite important to people, isn't it?
Well, yeah, you wouldn't know that, mate, or wouldn't think that, because you're obviously getting more devilishly handsome by the day.
I'm 60 years old, you know? Think about looks.
Astonishing, isn't it?
It's true, though, isn't it? I think
Benjamin Button.
Maybe, do you think more women worry about their looks on camera than the men do?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. So to that point, that things like FaceTime, for example, and the portal device, you know, that Facebook had. So I've got one here. A client of mine's got one at his house as well. And so the TV behind me, I can do one-to-one sessions with him, and it's probably the closest you're going to get to being in the room with them, because it's such a large screen. So he's fascinated. I think they've stopped selling them now, the portals. And the amount of times that he'd spoken to his wife or his daughter and said, look, you know, I'm going to have a call with family in Australia. Do you want to come on? And they'd be like, oh, no, I'm not ready. I don't, you know, and that's not,
of course,
that's not a commentary on women, but it's, you know, it was just like that they wanted to look how they wanted to look before going live again.
On the live,
I think that's a huge element to it. It's not the only one. And then the other one is you get inside your own head, is the judgment, you know, that kind of. And I'm really going to
more judgment on women, though. Do you think there's more judgment on the looks thing with women? You know, like I've just splashed my face with water. Possibly. Obviously, I haven't brushed my hair. It's not like I've spent 2 hours putting makeup on and doing my hair and making myself look presentable. And there is an expectation with women, isn't there? There is more pressure.
I think we get less judgment.
I didn't really think about that.
I definitely think we get less judgment as men. Yeah. But what I was also going to say is that, and I'm going to make a little pact with myself to not say this anymore, imposter syndrome, but that sort of feeling that you're not good enough, you don't have a voice, you don't have the authority to say anything about anything. I'm going to get judged. People are going to think that I'm just, you know, bullshitting
saying the wrong thing,
saying the wrong things, exposing yourself, slipping up. So all of that stuff, the lizard brain's going ballistic. And then the camera's in front of you and you go, I don't know what to say. I'm blank. And then the panic sets in. So, and everybody's different, but I think a lot of it comes down to the time of life that I'm in, and maybe you've potentially been kind of this way inclined that it's never been an issue for you. But I'm okay with where I'm at. I'm pretty comfortable in my own skin for, the first time in a long time. And it doesn't faze me anymore. It just doesn't impact me in that way that enables me. And it really does come down to what's going on up here, because, you have the knowledge, you have the words in your head, you have the physical ability to be able to do it. But if the brain, it's like the type 1 and the type 2 brains, the type 1 being that kind of over-intellectualizing, overthinking sort of brain, and the type 2 being in flow state and just letting the body do what it was designed to do and likes to do, that this can impact on that, which is that shutdown. So if you can kind of get past the type 1 brain and just tap into the type 2, you're just in flow state. You're not thinking about this thing that's happening right now. You're just talking like you were having a conversation with anybody in real time. If we were just having a coffee together and just, shooting the breeze, that's what it's like. But you just have to have a camera in front of you and maybe some other people are watching.
Yeah, because we've tried to do orchestrated videos and they've been awful, haven't they? It was a different type of skill. If you're doing like a training video that's all pre-recorded and you've got to follow a script, we found that quite challenging to not be so off the cuff. But some people prefer that than being off the cuff because they're worried about they've got to have their questions all lined up. Yeah. And sometimes you see it where people are not really listening. They're already thinking about their next question. Yeah. And they haven't really dived deep into the conversation.
Yes.
It's like, right, tick off the next question. And that's where I think these live conversations can be good, James, because it helps when you've got people who are relaxed, who can facilitate conversations, whether that's internal with employees or external with clients and potential customers in a research setting. Because I remember when my brother was young, he used to come out with my friends and we used to say, wow, he's so quiet, he's so introvert, he's this person. And then one day you saw when he invited his own friends over, he was just completely different. He was just a completely different human. So having people that bring the best out of you, facilitating, can be a game changer, because we've seen some of these lives and webinars that we've been on, James, and there seems to be like a real tension. It's not as relaxed, it's very formulaic, it's dull, it's pre-orchestrated, and it feels like
you can feel that, just like that. Oh, it makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable, and I don't know quite what to do with this feeling, and that impacts on what you're listening to. If you don't feel comfortable, you don't feel relaxed, and it doesn't feel like it's flowing, you're there constantly thinking, oh my god, that I can feel their embarrassment, or I can feel their awkwardness. And I know they're trying to fight to find the right words so that they come across in a particular way rather than just letting the words go.
Because it's more pressurized when you're in that company and you're being the one who's facilitating it from within the company, because these are the colleagues that you're going to see every day. You know about Jane and David and their life, and they know about you. There's an expectation of, it should be professional anyway, but there are expectations and preconceived ideas. When it's an external facilitator, there's a lot of more objectivity. There's a bit more relaxed. There's a bit more curiosity, because we haven't got the ideas of what's going on.
It's interesting you saying that. Made me think of a time when I was doing corporate like boot camps. So I'd go in there and there were only certain people that would go because they didn't want to get sweaty in front of work colleagues.
People, I've heard that. Yeah.
And it is fascinating, and I completely understand it. But it's the way in which we present ourselves in a corporate environment, in a work environment, and as you said, these people that we're going to be spending time with on a daily basis. You know, it's one thing to sort of say something to somebody you're never going to see again, and have that interaction. Just go, well, I'm never going to see them again, so that's okay. But when you've got to go in the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and be in that environment with that person, then it does matter. But you can't take it for granted. You can't just assume. So definitely it's an interesting kind of concept, and that interaction that you get people that will say in a relaxed way, because the more relaxed you are, the more comfortable you're going to be in saying things and not be thinking like you're going to make a mistake. If you're feeling tense and uptight, much more likely it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that you're going to actually say the things you don't necessarily want to say.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you're internal, there's a bias, isn't there? There's a bias to lean towards the business rather than being objective of maybe what a client would think or a customer would think. Where if you haven't built that sort of loyalty bridge already, and that's why we think external facilitation is always it can be a positive option or something to try with these type of lives, because we see them really, James, don't we, in terms of there's the external clients and customers in a research or engagement type of a setting. So you're creating, it might be a new product launch, it might be a founder story, it might be just people getting to understand what your business is about. Who are you? Who's behind all of this marketing? Who am I buying into?
Where's the human element?
Where is the human element there? And then you've got the other side, which is more employee engagement, actually facilitating some type of discussions or conversations inside where people can speak freely, communicate.
Well, in terms of like recruitment, if you're looking to recruit talent into your business, then they're going to be looking to see what the culture is within that business. So is it something that I want to be part of? So how do you convey that? Well, you could have the founder or, you know, the managing director or, you know, upper management having a conversation where people that are interested in joining that company can see them in a relaxed environment and they get a window into it. So it's not just looking at the website and seeing the very kind of corporate image and whatever the
video and things like that.
Sometimes I believe personally that it's not enough just to look at what the employee perks are, you know, what you get as an employee of that company. I believe fundamentally that people want to know that they are working for a company that aligns with their values and they can go in every day and feel like they're making a difference. So they feel valued and heard, but they're also working as a collective towards a common goal that they can get on board with. So I think, you know, getting that kind of intentionality and that personality from the people that they are going to be working for is crucial.
And just being relaxed, like you said on these lives, James, because you're not going to be good at something you've never done, you know, and you don't expect to be, and you don't have to be. You're not an actor.
No,
it's not your game. It's just a conversation. You will naturally, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth time of being on a live having a conversation, you will naturally just relax more because it will be familiar. And that's the thing about these lives, is it's not just a live that you do once every 10 years and that's your live. This is something that you can continually do to keep people in the loop, to stay relevant, to talk about new projects you've got going on, to talk about your thoughts. So people are buying into you on a journey. It's sort of the Kardashians mod, even though the Kardashians was a model that was recorded for, 10, 20 years, and it was all pre-recorded, pre-orchestrated. So this is slightly different on the live stuff, but it was the similar thing of following their journey, and that's why they could create a product in any niche and be a billionaire overnight.
Immaterial of what you feel about the because my knee jerk was to say you had to mention the Kardashians.
Yeah, but they could bring out anything, could they? A hat, a lipstick, or whatever it is, overnight. I know one of the young girls was like, "You're a billionaire," because they've seen you grow up from being a kid. They've seen you grow, and people like those. Yeah, people like the hero's journey. They like to see you go from somewhere to something. Stephen Harris says, I disagree. You are an actor. It is a performance.
Oh,
interesting. I think James Stevens talking to you. I think maybe seen you on a.
I tell you what, I did have aspirations of acting. To be fair, I was very good at school. I really
seriously.
I was. In my head, I was
too nervous.
I was very good.
I think maybe Stephen, you're going to have to elaborate on the acting thing. I think what is acting? We'll have to define what is acting. Is that pretending to be someone you're not? Is it acting? Is sales an act? Is that acting? Is being on a live talking about your business and whatever you're doing, is that an act?
So I'm going to interpret it that maybe you are never truly, I mean, this is again coming down to that kind of the public and private self. Are you ever truly yourself, or is it an act? I'm going to interpret what he's just said there as saying, yeah, so this allows you to mentally separate from self, he said. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see that. But then that gets very philosophical, doesn't it? To think, are you acting when you speak to your mum because you act differently when you speak to your wife? Then you act differently with your child. Then you've got a different relationship at work. But it is all you, isn't it? So even like Stephen says, sales is an act.
Yeah.
But then you've got to redefine what acting. You could say, if you go on a date and you're speaking to, you're trying to proposition your wife, is that an act?
Impress. You're trying to impress.
You're selling yourself, aren't you, when you go on a date? So you're trying to say to, who you are, what you do, and she's either going to buy into you or she's going to think, I don't want what you're selling here. Yeah. So are you an actor? Are you
being truly authentic, or are you just putting on an act?
Because realistically, when you go on a date, people are not going to say. There was a guy from the School of Life, Alain de Botton, and he said you should ask on your first date, how are you crazy? Tell me how you are crazy, because you're going to find that people are always presenting the best version of themselves on their first day. Yeah. So is that a form of acting? I think there is definitely people who do. It depends what you're selling. If you're selling, there are sales people out there. Yeah, if you're a salesperson and you are this person who could sell anything, and you don't have any emotional connection to the product or the service, you couldn't care less, your game is to sell, then I think you're probably just taking on a role, aren't you, of this person, and you're trying to manipulate, I would say. Yeah. If you had the cure for cancer and you had cancer, that sales process wouldn't really be, would it be an act? I've got something that you need. I wouldn't probably need to sell it, would I?
That's the entire thing with sales, isn't it? I've got something you need.
Yeah. So I think the more maybe you don't need the thing, or the more you have to convince somebody about it, then maybe that's when the acting comes
Stephen,
in.
Are you in sales? Can I ask you if you are in sales, whether you'll say that or not? That would be an interesting
Yeah,
question.
sales is an interesting one, but I get it. I just think it's that's a very deep conversation to say we could extrapolate that into a million different directions, isn't it?
I like it.
We like a little bit of deep on there. But in terms of the lives, I think like what Stephen's saying is an act. How long can people act for? Can people continually show up and consistently? It would be exhausting, wouldn't it?
I think if you're trying to be something you're not over a long period of time, it's like.
But there are people that do it, James, isn't there? There's people that on YouTube they present themselves in terms of what the audience wants, and then all of a sudden they're having to then keep up with this persona, and then they create an audience that expects this persona. It could be like you're this ultra excitable person that you put this act on, and then every time you're on screen, you're going to have to be hyped up all the time. When you're not that person, you're going to be exhausted.
I agree.
I think Stephen said, have been trained and in theatre.
So he has been in sales and trained in theatre.
Yeah. I think Stephen's winding us up now. I think he is acting.
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I think he's absolutely genuine.
He's a genuine actor. Is Stephen acting now or not?
We're going to disappear, aren't we? We're going to go snake eating its tail.
Yeah. He says that's the problem that screws people's mental health. You cannot continue and act. Yeah, I think so. And that's where I think lives, like we said with YouTube, there are people who have created big channels based on maybe an exaggerated persona of themselves, but they soon get to a point where it's exhausting. Anytime you're acting and you're doing something, or you're not aligned with your values, I think it just becomes exhausting for you, isn't it? So anytime you're selling something, if you're not with it or you don't like it, you're probably not going to do that well, are you, in the first place? Do you think, James?
People can tell. I think at the end of the day, we're all fairly intuitive, aren't we? That we've got this kind of sense of what it is that's going on in front of us. And I think, mate, as far as you and I are concerned, I just quite like talking to you.
Yeah.
You know, could that be an act? I've just said that. Was I lying when I said that? But no, I do.
We've started this as the reverse of what many people do, as in trying to find the problem, sell an offer, and then, build this audience. We've sort of gone into what we like, what we like doing, finding gaps where maybe we're more natural at doing something that's easier for us, and then trying to figure out, because we are living in this capitalistic world, James, aren't we? So we need to be able to, there's a point with most things where you have to think about a monetization strategy.
Yeah, that's life. That
is life. And if you're just being honest about that,
say anything else about it, it's bullshit. Because it is. It's the fundamentals. So,
and I'm behind the future utopia, James, where everything's free: housing, access to food, all of this stuff. People create art and paintings because they love it. They give it away for free. They create music because they love it, and this is what they do. There's no expectation. There's no monetary need. I'm with you. I don't know if it's going to be in my lifetime. I think AI could potentially push us closer to this world, but at the moment, there is, a monetization area that people have to go in to try and make a living, don't they, to survive. And if people are selling something good, James, and they've got a chicken kebab down the road, not for you because you're a vegan.
Value in it. As long as there's value in it,
If it tastes good and I'm hungry, then that's a good value exchange for me.
Yeah, and try not to drop it on the floor.
Yeah, and there's not much acting needed for that, for the kebab guy.
Not a lot.
He could do a dance.
Yeah, but it's got to be kind of upbeat for the people coming in, but the majority of people are pissed anyway. So it's like, that's what I said, just try not to drop your kebab on the floor.
Yeah, but that's what they say about business. If you are the hot dog stand,
Business is a bit like a kebab.
It's a bit like a bar. But if you're the hot dog stand outside of a football stadium, you don't have to be Michelin star hot dog for people to want it and buy it.
Yeah.
It's about positioning. If you've got water in the desert.
I've woken up after a night out with a kebab stuck to the side of my face.
And then you went vegan.
I thought I'd gone blind in one eye. When I woke up, and it was literally stuck like that. And I looked in the mirror.
I used to love a kebab on a night. It used to be such a thing, didn't it? A proper.
It was always a
was
thing.
It lamb?
Always a
thing. Greasy lamb kebab.
Chicken.
Yeah. I used to go lamb.
I haven't always been vegan, mate. I have to make that very clear.
Yeah, no, you're like salivating now, aren't you?
Born again vegan, just
so yeah, the live game is we think it's going to be very prominent in the very near future, as AI content is going to be everywhere, and it's going to be very hard to distinguish what's real, what's not. Maybe we will create some avatars of ourselves to try it out, but I think people still want that element where you can talk to the audience, you can get feedback, they can really get a gist of you over a period of time. Because I think, Stephen was right there. You can still act, you can still do a 20-minute, 30-minute, an hour's talk, and you can pre-rehearse the whole thing. You can act it out. If you're showing up on a regular, on a live, like we've been doing 3 to 5 times a week on lives, I don't know how many times you could act that out. It would be pretty tough, wouldn't it, to act that out every single day. I'm not saying it's impossible, but the average person, I don't think, unless you're trained at doing it, you're not going to be able to do it. But they're going to see a window into yourself, into the reason why you've started this. The reason why you started this business, James, and why you're offering what you're offering and what problems you can solve. And they're just going to be more bought into you. And plus there's that trust thing, James, because if you're online and you're showing up online, I just think that you're just going to less likely rip me off, because you're out there, and that person could always come back on and say something and bring that person down, or highlight the fact that they've been ripped off. So there is that element of trust that person's going to keep showing off, or you're not just going to sell them something and then run away and it doesn't matter. And some corporates, they can be a bit faceless. If something goes wrong, then you're trying to get hold of them. It can be difficult. Saying that, Amazon is pretty brilliant, to be honest. I know people don't like Amazon because of the whole potential of the labor rights and things like that. But if I've got a problem with something, sometimes I say I'm going to send this back. They just say just keep it. Probably just cost them more to, send it back. Normally it's like between £5 and £10 item, but sometimes they just say just keep it. Pretty good, and quite good with customer service stuff. Really good. But that's the thing with this stuff, James, is Bezos, Bezos is, I'm going to say James Bezos. It's Jeff, isn't it? Jeff Bezos of Amazon.
Well, I've got the hair.
I guess he's a little bit of a personal brand, but personal branding in smaller companies now seems to be a bit of an advantage, doesn't it? It's being pushed in all directions in the whole marketing sphere. Do you think, James?
I think the origin story of business, but that's what we're really interested in. It's like, well, if the product's very similar to someone else's, but we can kind of buy into the origin story, or what it is that they're trying to achieve. And I don't know, actually, because I keep listening to sort of podcasts, business podcasts, and they're talking about their company ethos and their mission statements and all that sort of thing. And then some businesses want to kind of align themselves with charity and think that, if they're giving away a certain amount of percentage of profits to charity, that would sway the consumer. And it always comes back, it's like, first and foremost, the consumer's very swayed by the quality of the product, whether it's something for them, but a lot of it is down to the story behind it. So, how did this thing come about? What was the thought process? And then it's how they align themselves. It's whether they associate themselves with that particular product. It's an identity thing.
Yeah.
So, I think story is absolutely key, because it says something about you as an individual. It's like, well, if I buy this product, what does it say about me? Am I the type of person that ...
Yeah.
So, and then it's a, tribal community thing, that if other people around you are buying it, that's how you then fit in. It's like, oh, I bought that, and yeah, it was great. And it's something to sort of cement you into that group. So
but there's
lots
of difference
different
between a corporate video, though, isn't there, James, and an actual live on an ongoing basis? Because you could do the whole, you could do the whole origin story on a corporate video. I'm not saying don't do it, because they can be very persuasive, they can look amazing, but I think live brings a different element.
It's kind of granular, isn't it? It's really quite visceral.
Yeah, and ongoing. It's ongoing, it's visceral, it's real, it's a raw connection. Whereas I think we become immune to anything that looks overly polished, because that's what we've seen so much.
It's building relationships, as you said before. It's that, you see somebody on a consistent basis, you can start to invest in them emotionally and then financially. So once the emotions are there, then you're happy to part with money. But until that happens, it's very unlikely you're going to do that, unless it's very low cost.
But we'll say to people, James, we'll wrap that up. We'll say to people, if you're interested in live events, or you want facilitators for live events, then get in contact with us, because on the marketing side, there's definitely formulas around writing posts, driving people back to live events. Very popular, great way to improve your email addresses. Great way to get across, like you said, origin stories, and even internally with companies. It's just fantastic that you can have this portal where your employees can discuss certain topics and feel free to be themselves.
Sounds amazing, doesn't it? Wow.
Yeah, so for people who want to get in contact with us, I'm going to drop links down below. It's John and James live, johnandjames.live at the moment, but we have got like a future insights PDF that's going to be coming out very soon, so I'll drop that in the links as well. But thanks, James. I think that's a good way to start broaching the topic, isn't it? And it's a topic that we'll discuss further in the future. And thank you, everybody. Thank you, Stephen, for watching, and anybody else out there that's watching. It was much appreciated.
And lurking.
How many lurkers, James? We will soon find out. There's a few. Are you going to be a lurker, or are you going to be a creator? That is the question.
There's the question right there. There is the question right there.
Out of the shadows. Get on there.
I love that. I love that.
Okie dokie. Right, take care, James. We'll see you later.
Much love, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks again, Stephen.
Cheers, Stephen. Bye-bye.
Bye.